Hai, welcome to Kremés podcast.
Podcast yang paling receh and garing, but maybe informative too, depending on the day.
I'm T.
And I'm A,
Semoga podcast ini bisa nemenin lo.
and hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, Kremés podcast listeners. We're back with yours truly, T, as well as A. Today, we're going to do a bit more of one of your favorite series, Indo versus Aussie, where we talk more about sort of, the differences, but also the similarities in our respective cultures, but also discuss about, I guess our personal experiences as third culture kids, and so on and so forth. So without further ado, today, hari ini adalah tanggal 12 Februari, 12th of February. That's so weird. I just sounded like a radio broadcast host in Indo for some reason. Did not know what voice I was taking, but yes, today is 12th of February. It's actually Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year or Spring Festival, however you call it, or Imlek for our Indonesian listeners. It is actually the start of a new year for our Chinese people and the Chinese calendar. So I thought that it would be appropriate to have this discussion with you, and do a bit of a Indo versus Aussie, I guess, Chinese New Year, how people celebrate Chinese New Year, if there's differences, if there's similarities, because obviously it is a Chinese culture shared between two, locations or subcultures, if you will. The reason why I wanted to talk about this was gua sih sejujurnya, my direct family does not celebrate Chinese New Year. So my obviously, like, my grandparents, my aunties and uncles, like my bigger family, they do. Tapi keluarga gua, as in my direct parents and siblings, we actually don't really do it. I am obviously familiar with the customs and roughly what you do and what happens, and the red packets and the yusheng or whatever, the lohe or whatever you guys do. So I kind of know the gist, but I haven't actually been sort of, participating in it fully for a long time now. So the last time I was really sort of in the thick of it was probably when I was back in Jakarta, which was a few years back. So interested to get your perspective on this, and also sort of getting, understanding your story behind it, I guess how you would celebrate it in Indo versus how you would do it now or even today in Australia. As well as, what your take is on the meaning and symbolism behind it, because I understand, from wearing red to, like, cutting your hair or catching up with family and friends, there's a whole lot of symbolism behind it. And the fact that, I guess, the celebrations run for like 15 days, there's always lots of things involved. So, keen to sort of get your thoughts on how it all goes.
Well, my family and me, so our immediate family, kayak keluarga inti gue dan juga keluarga besar gue, kita merayakan Chinese New Year ya. Jadi kayak from both my mom's side and my dad's side, we're pretty big with Chinese New Year. Kalau menurut gue sih, emang pasti ada bedanya dengan Indo sama Aussie ya. Kalau misalnya, tapi mungkin ini lebih dari sisi lokasi aja. Jadi misalnya kayak kalau misalnya di Aussie kan, karena kita far away from our family and stuff like that, we tend to have a smaller gathering. Jadi kayak kita berlima aja, kayak me and my family aja. Terus kita tetap menjalankan sama, kayak tetap hot pot, tetap kayak pakai baju merah gitu. Tapi just 5 of us gitu. Atau kalau misalnya ada ya mungkin sama family friend atau gimana gitu yang ada di Aussie kan. Nah, jadi so at the moment I think the gist of it is, I heard a lot of like background like story about it. So like, for example, you're supposed to do the showers, clean your house and like cut your like hair and stuff like that, like the day before Chinese New Year, but you're not supposed to do any of that the day of Chinese New Year. So today is the 12th of February, that's the Chinese New Year date. But the day before the Chinese New Year Eve is the 11th of February, right? So to start with, the calendar itself has its own calendar. So because it's a lunar calendar, so every year Chinese New Year will fall on different dates. So we usually will know either from like Google or like our grandparents will tell us like, oh, Chinese New Year will fall on this date this year. So so the ritual that I know, I guess, is that Chinese New Year Eve, you wash your hair, you cut your hair, you just kind of do like all the cleaning in a sense. And then on Chinese New Year, because that's mean like you getting rid of bad luck, they say. And then on New Year, you don't do any of that, because if you do, you actually getting rid of the good luck, because it's Chinese New Year. And then usually families will have the dinner on Chinese New Year Eve. So but I guess like that's what like the traditional will do. Like they will have a Chinese New Year Eve dinner where we usually get hot pot or dumplings, or it just depends on the tradition that you have. So usually it will be hot pot kayak shabu-shabu gitu, terus kayak steamboat gitu kan, terus mungkin ada dumplings, handmade dumplings, mungkin juga ada kayak makanan-makanan lainnya gitu. Dan biasa tuh ada kue-kue kering gitu, jadi kayak ada kue nastar, ada kayak itu loh yang cuma kulitnya doang tapi kayak yang digulung itu loh, so those ones. Jadi a lot of those gitu. Tapi to be honest, gue sih nggak tahu like what each food means gitu kan. Cuman that's what they do.
Yeah, because there's so many of them, right?
There's so many of them and different like, karena ini kan kalau kita kan ya, kalau gue sih kan gue Chinese ya, jadi kayak Chinese Indo gitu kan. Jadi kayak my background is Chinese New Year gitu. Tapi the one that's like Vietnamese or like Korean or Japanese and stuff, they have their own version of it. So like it's hard to track what every race have like their tradition. Buat Chinese sih gitu. Dan juga ada beberapa extra tradition, for example kayak if it is your year, kayak kita kan ada 12 show kan. Jadi kalau misalnya itu tahun lo, it's actually not good luck, it's actually bad luck. So like you have to wear like red stuff throughout the year to like break the juju or something.
Really? Okay.
Cuman katanya. Nah, tapi so with all of that tradition, karena cause I have my own religion, right? So I don't believe in those superstitions, because for me it's like, nah, it shouldn't be that way. Like, like it's gonna be hard. Because for example, like one of the thing was like, in Chinese New Year Eve you cannot sleep early, because the longer you stay awake, that's how long your grandparents and your parents gonna live. Like, kayak mereka hidupnya bakal panjang kalau kita nggak tidur pagian. But I feel like I don't know, I feel like, what if you have work the next day? Gimana kalau misalnya lu sekolah besok ya? Like, it's not, kayak nggak bisa juga gitu kalau misalnya lu kayak, sengaja tidur jam 3 pagi atau whatever gitu. Tapi kayak besoknya you got work and you got school gitu kan. Like, it's just not making any sense for me personally.
Yeah, I guess, no, I agree with that. I think maybe that's also why my parents so much don't really they acknowledge that it's a thing. I mean, obviously we do acknowledge it's a thing, but we also don't fully participate in it, because obviously participating in it is already kind of like being in alignment and agreement with a whole bunch of, I guess, cultural, but also more spiritual and religious, like sort of, like alignment or, stuff that's behind it, like what, like truly sort of celebrating it. So I think maybe that's why my parents are like, it's a bit not for us. That's why we don't really do it.
Yeah, I think this, I think for us, it's still a nice tradition that we can, everyone can still enjoy. Because like my family is spread out around the world kind of situation, like where my aunties are, like even in Indonesia itself, kayak mereka tuh beda-beda kota segala macam. So this is like for us maybe kayak our lebaran gitu loh. It's like this is a time where we go and meet each other and bersilaturahmi, and then like kind of have like that time where everyone can be together. And this is kind of the thing that like, because not everyone in the family is the same religion kind of situation. So like we can't really do like, for example, Christmas or something like that. New Year's will be nice, but at the same time, like everyone is everywhere, right? So Chinese New Year is one of the things that bring us together.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to say that between Australia and Indonesia, of course, Indonesia will celebrate it a lot bigger. Because I think in here, we still do the typical stuff, like, for example, the lohe and, like having dinners and stuff like that. But, like, it's on a smaller basis. Like, they will usually stay at home and then they do it at home. And I guess it's nice here more is because, like, it's so multicultural, right? Kita kan ada teman dari Singapura, Malaysia, dari negara-negara lain gitu. Jadi kayak, lebih banyak acara Chinese New Year ya. Jadi kayak misalnya yesterday I have my family Chinese New Year dinner, right? Today I have a Chinese New Year dinner with my sisters and one of this family friend because my parents are going to her house. So I was like, okay, you're gonna go with all the aunties and uncle. We're not gonna really talk that much. So why don't she comes over to our house? So then, we have our own kids Chinese New Year thing. And then, and then on Saturday, I have my church friends' Chinese New Year dinner. So, we tend to have more Chinese New Year dinner with different group of friends because we're just celebrating it with other people from different countries and stuff like that. And that's just, it makes it, it's quite nice. Because I think for me personally, I don't know how it is in other countries, tapi kalau di Indo tuh kayak jarang banget kita ngerayain Chinese New Year dinner sama temen kita gitu loh. Kayak itu tuh biasa family thing gitu. Kita nggak, for me, when I was in Indo, I never have a dinner with my friends when it's Chinese New Year. And
right. It's always like family, is it?
Yeah, it's always like family. And I would go through like my mom's side of family and then my dad's side of family and stuff like that, like really big. We have like, I don't know, like I have 14 cousins from each side. So like that's the kids alone, it's already 17, and with all the uncles and aunties, there are like 30 people in the same room. And then so that bit is probably the difference as well. But then but if I want to say Indo like celebrate it a lot better because like in Indo there are so many things, like you actually buying hampers for your friends, like buying cakes, send them to their houses to like say Happy New Year kind of situation. You can buy flowers for them as well, and you like there's a lot of those. And then and what I can remember is like whenever I go back to Indo and because usually it lands on February, right? But then February is the start of the school year in Australia, so we haven't celebrated in so long. The only time that I celebrated was like 2 or 3 times because I finished uni, so I can stay in Indo a lot longer. So the last one that I did was actually 2020 because I moved because I come back to Australia on the 31st. So I get to experience the Chinese New Year because it was landing on January, I think. Like, it was the end of January. And that was so good because, like, I get to meet up with all my cousins in the same, like, big room. And then we do the lohe. Like, they have the kid version and they have the adult version because we're, like, there's too many of us. So they separate it into 2. But then the food itself is mostly, like, Chinese food. So we eat the noodles, but we eat the duck, like, pork belly and stuff like that. Like, the menu itself that time was not particular. It was just, like, a Chinese food menu. And then we ended up with a karaoke. So usually when we do come back and for like Chinese New Year and stuff like that, they will sing karaoke songs. And then we just kind of, everyone just chill and watch each other sing karaoke songs. And then not particular, I think like now, like, because it has evolved, right? So like the songs doesn't always have to be Chinese songs. We wish that we could be able to sing Chinese songs, but most of us can't really read the Chinese as much anymore. Because like, I don't know, do we call it first gen, second gen Indonesian? Because like technically our grandparents like migrated from China, right? So there will be this first gen. Do you know what I mean? Like they basically come from China all the way. So you know how like people always talk about like how we're the first generation or second generation when we migrated to America and stuff like that. Well, technically it's still the same thing for me because my family come from China kind of situation. So for me, I'm probably like a second gen Indonesian or something, you know what I mean? So it's similar concept.
Yeah, true. I think I am too. To be honest, like I really don't know how far down my ancestry were the migrants directly from China to Indonesia, because my grandparents were born in Indonesia. And as far as I know, my great-grandparents were also born in Indonesia. So it's like, for me, it's probably something that I need to also look into, because it's something I'm interested in, like, my cultural heritage. But to the best of my ability, my my extended family that, let's just say, are still alive at this point, were all born in Indonesia. And while we do have that Chinese Indonesian heritage, and my grandparents still definitely, celebrate it and try to keep up the customs, try to keep that tradition alive, unfortunately, it's sort of like, not that we don't want to, but it's just because my direct family, there's certain clashes in, I guess, the spirituality of celebrating Chinese New Year, that for us, we just don't do it directly, but we still definitely, respect it. And definitely when I was a little girl, I completely enjoyed it when I was home in Indo, like getting all the ang pao or the hong pao or the red packets. Like that was like, obviously the highlight of the day. But even like, I totally agree with you. Like obviously Indonesia kan, it's 100% like Asian country with Asian cultures, right? Jadi walaupun Imlek is a Chinese tradition in a Muslim country, it's still pretty big. Like how we would respect Ramadan and Lebaran, it's like the tradition is still definitely there. And I remember my grandparents, exactly like you said, the Eve would be all about decluttering, cleaning the house, stocking up food. Maybe some people also go to the temple to worship. We would put all the red lanterns, and we had to like get ready for our new clothes. We would buy new clothes because on the actual New Year's Day, we can't wear old clothes. And we can't do anything except for like celebrating, eating, drinking. Like, we can't do any chores per se on the Chinese New Year Day. So we basically did all that cleaning and all that prep on the eve, cut our hair, cleaning the garbage, all that kind of stuff. We also I just remember like my grandma would like do calligraphy, and then she would put like red banners on the door, like the doorpost, and then like that the happiness symbol, but it's like has to be upside down, like the fortune symbol but upside down, that kind of thing. So I kind of roughly remember all that stuff. And then obviously since moving here, while that culture is still very much kind of like, it's there. Like even coming into the office the past couple of days, all the lobbies for most of the buildings in the city, they had like red lanterns, they had sort of like statues of the lion dancers. Like it's definitely there, but obviously it's not as sort of, heavily sort of, focused on the traditions of all that. So we haven't sort of done all that sort of, we have to clean everything before the eve and that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because I've got friends who are, youth Asian Australians like us, who I guess, for some of them, they've actually forgotten what the true sort of, I guess, traditional way of getting ready for Chinese New Year is like, because it's just something that they kind of, I guess, unfortunately forgotten because they've lived, in Australia and they've, had other things. But they've also, on the flip side, there's also those of my friends whose parents are still very much focused to that tradition. They are not allowed to even clip their fingernails on Chinese New Year Day or something. So it's really all about, I guess, that different traditions and cultures, I guess, because that's something that I guess is really interesting. For me, it's mainly because I really don't associate to it, but for all our youth, Chinese, Australian, or even sort of Vietnamese or Korean, Australian friends out there who celebrate today, and the 15 days that lead from it, it's just interesting to sort of see that, and how that's been like, here versus in Indo. And like what you said about like people sending each other food and stuff, like honestly, my Instagram for the past few days has just been swarmed by people posting stories thanking their friends and their family for sending like rantangan kayak atau kue atau cookies atau pokoknya aneka makanan dikirimin yang kayak tema-temanya Imlek gitu. So it's like, from even just like oranges to like really fancy macaroons that have like the red packets and like they're all red and they're all really, really pretty. So I think sometimes I look at them and I start thinking about, oh yeah, that's what used to happen when I was back in Indo, and how it's kind of not the same here as well, because obviously that culture of giving you know, like it's still there, I'm sure, but it's not as much as the Indo, because like all my friends are receiving so many different cakes and goodies and even flowers, like you said, from so many different people. So I think that culture of giving and spreading good fortune, good luck and prosperity is definitely alive. How about you, A? So roughly, maybe I guess it's like now the Aussie, what have you guys got planned for, let's just say like today, aside from all the dinners that you're going to have with your family? Like, do you do that sort of lohe thing? You know, like do you still give each other red packets, or do you give your parents oranges still, that kind of thing?
So technically right now, we just kind of calling people to say Happy New Year. So every group chat right now is just like Happy New Year, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. So we're doing the exact same thing as if it's New Year anyway. So my parents are calling like all the relatives in Indo and stuff like that, because I'm still at work, so I can't really call them now. But that's basically what's happening. We tried to do lohe like last year, but we don't really like eating it, so we just choose not to. Jadi kayak kalau gue rasa sih sekarang Chinese New Year lebih ke practicality gitu. Jadi kayak emang kayak it will be nice to have it, but it's not like a big deal if we don't. But I know that, for example, like maybe this Saturday when I meet up with like my church friends, like because there will be like 20 people, for sure I think we're probably gonna have lohe, because it's just such like a tradition, like a fun thing to do with everyone kind of situation, you know. But because we're only 5 of us, there's only like literally 5 of us. If we have a lohe, like we can't even finish it anyway, and it'll be a waste of food, so we just don't do it. But it's still, I think you still get, well, for me, we still get red packets. It's not as much as if I was in Indo, for sure, but now we still get red packets, like the same thing, like if you say kung si patai, and then you say like all of the like good luck, like, you know, shen ti xian kang, like, you know, may you like you live a healthy life and stuff like that. But now I guess because I've been living away from my extended family for like my whole life, basically, it has more been like a transfer, like they just transfer it through banks, or my mom would just tell us that like, hey, you got a ang pao from so and so say thank you, yeah, and stuff like that, because we don't know if we get it or not, right? So so there's that aspect of it. I don't really do the gift oranges to my parents. I never done it before in my life, so I don't know anything about that. But one of the newest tradition that I just been told is that, you know, like now I have my own full-time job, so like I should not should lah, but like do I want to give ang pao to my grandparents to say like thank you for like the whole, like all of the year that they have like helped me and like, you know, give me ang pao and stuff. So thinking about it, I don't know what the nominal that would be like appropriate and stuff like that, so I'll think about it.
But here's the thing, right? Okay, like based on my understanding, and again, my understanding is so like murky, because like who am I to say? But like bukankah kita cuman kasih, like only married couples give?
Yeah, so married couple give the
married people
non-married couple
the red packet, but we in turn, like we as the younger and also the non-married people, we give to the elders the oranges as a sign of respect.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. That's why I don't know where the tradition came from.
There's a whole lot of symbolism behind it, right?
No, I think like at the same time, it's just kind of like, you know, when I guess in Indo, there's that tradition as well, like where you start working, you start giving your parents money. You know what I mean? Like not give them money, but like
true.
give them kind of like, I don't know how to say it, but like yeah, kind of like a red envelope kayak ang pao gitu, kayak oh iya kan udah mulai kerja, jadi ini untuk orang tua gitu. Like it's always have that tradition. I don't know, that's like campuran from Indonesian tradition and like Chinese tradition together. That's why you do it. But yeah, my mom just messaged me like a month ago and say that like, hey, like Chinese New Year is coming up, you have your full-time job, do you wanna, you know, how you give ang pao, you know, like but for me personally, it's still a bit like, oh, like why does it have to be about money? Like, you know, like I would rather take them out for dinner and stuff.
I mean, you know, it might not be about money per se, but it's about that sign of respect and the sign of, you know, being grateful and thanking and respecting our elders, that kind of thing, right? So I think it's like, ultimately it's what you feel is right to pay that sign of respect, I guess, and I guess maybe traditionally it may be money.
No, I think it's just a bit weird because I mean, like, it's different from us because we're no longer in Indo, right? So they're like, I'm close with my grandparents, but their influence on me is not that big because we've been away from each other for like 10-20 years for all I know. All of my day-to-day stuff doesn't really because like my cousins, right, like every year they will see my grandparents and stuff like that because they're all living in Indo, but like for me I wouldn't be able to do that, and then like it will always get mishaps and stuff like that, so like we haven't seen each other in so long and stuff like that, so it's just kind of like, I don't know, it's a bit weird in a sense. But like I would love to be able to, like, my goal is more like, oh, like if they come to Australia, like I would pay for their dinner, like I would drive them around and stuff like that, but like, so it's just kind of still new territory because this is like this is my first year of working full-time, so yeah, I couldn't say much. Like, I don't know.
I think it is that new thing, right? It's like definitely for me when I started working, obviously, like automatically I did have that, like I had the Indonesian word for it, but the English one is filial piety, which is kind of like, obviously like giving back to your parents, respecting your parents, but also your grandparents for, the sacrifices and the love and the care that they've committed to raise you up, and to allow you to be who you are, obviously today with a job, and, berterima kasih dan bersyukur begituan kan. Jadi I definitely, like, even though maybe my starting salary wasn't much, but, even like little things like treating my family for like ice cream or something, like just like, I don't have to give them like a fancy 5-star course meal, dinner, whatever, but it's like, anything that I can afford, I'm just, going to pay for them as a sign of gratitude, because now that I'm earning money that I'm like, I can, right? Like, and I think that's what ultimately it is about. Like, it's not like it doesn't always have to be a monetary sort of like sign, but like, like actions, I guess. And I think maybe in general, while my family might not celebrate Chinese New Year word for word, like, urutin, and then like, following like the whole customs and traditions, I think ultimately today is meant to be giving thanks, being together, especially during COVID now when we can't really physically be together, but like trying to keep that connection going virtually or whatever way. It's just all about that. So I'm definitely going to reach out to my grandparents today and just, wish them well and wish them, health and all that kind of stuff. And I think ultimately that's what the day is meant to be. I mean, obviously there are definitely deep-rooted traditions behind doing whatever in the Chinese tradition, and that's completely fine. But I think, if we really, really go into like the crux of it, it's just about celebrating good health, being together while we're apart, and just being grateful for what we have, I think. And I think when you say like lo hei, so like for those of you who don't know what lo hei or yusheng is, it's basically like I think it's more Cantonese than it is Chinese, or even like it could be a bit Vietnamese as well. It's basically like a raw fish salad. So it comes in a huge plate, and you get so each person in the table gets like huge chopsticks, and it's usually like there's like an order, I think, in how like you put certain things, but like there's definitely a raw fish, usually salmon. There's like some sort of citrus fruit of some kind. I think it's like pomelo or something. You got spices, you got oil.
I'm pretty sure like every single ingredient also like
has a meaning or something. Yeah. And then you got like nuts, peanuts, sesame seeds, some kind of crackers, like kerupuk of some kind, a sauce. And then you literally just as a unit, like as one table, you use your long chopsticks to mix everything up. And then you have to mix it like really high. You have to like raise the salad really high because that sort of, symbolizes long life and fortune and whatever. So I think that's a really, like while it may not be the most appetizing dish, obviously it has some meaning behind it. So that's interesting. When it comes to even red packets, right? Like kalau di Indo, ini juga pas gua masih kecil banget ya, so I don't even remember if it's still like, is it actually a thing going on now? But like every single time we see an older person, like an older married person during Chinese New Year, all we need to do is just like do the hand, like the handshaking thing and say gong xi fa cai or whatever, and like automatically they would give us a red packet. most of the time it's like family, obviously, but like even like extended family that I've like literally never met before, like some distant auntie and uncle who would come door knocking and visit each other's houses. We would visit other people's houses to pay respect, and literally every stranger who maybe I'm related to, I would just have to I would have to wish them well, and they would automatically give me a red packet. Whereas obviously here, that's like not happening. Like it's udah kayak, it's something that we don't do here anymore. Also, we don't have a lot of relatives here. Tapi ultimately, even like we can't obviously rock up to a stranger and just do like kongsi and like expect money. I think it's also more so because keluarga kita kan banyakan kan masih di Indo kan, jadi kayak mungkin tradisinya juga lebih kuat di sana karena emang orangnya juga di sana gitu. So yeah, but I think like I just wanted to touch on like, kan lu bilang kayak sekarang ortu lu lagi kayak ucapin Sinyang Kuala or like Happy New Year or Selamat Hari Imlek, Selamat Tahun Baru to your family and friends using like WhatsApp and using like maybe like FaceTime and stuff. How's that been? I mean, not necessarily maybe just Chinese New Year, but also like even ucapin like general calendar New Year when January 1st came around. Like, how has that been like, I guess, your experience with COVID and I guess not being around family physically anymore these days?
I think it's just the same thing again, like calling it through the phone. Because I mean, like what I said, like I've been away from my extended family for like 20 years. Like away means like our family has been living in a different country and different city since I was like 3 years old. So it's kind of like normal for us to have that just video call or like, just voice chat. And it's just like, it's just not much of a difference. But I think at the same time, like my family is spread around the world. So like, it's also normal for us to call each other instead. With the COVID situation and stuff like that, it doesn't necessarily change so much, but I think it appears a lot for my friends and my family in Indo. Well, mostly my cousins in Indo, because like they usually hang out together and they like, because they're all spread it around Indonesia, so they can still fly to each other. Like they just kayak kumpul-kumpul bareng di Jakarta di rumah grandparents gue gitu kan. Tapi karena sekarang they want to be mindful as well, and they just they just be safe and stuff like that, so they all celebrating it in their own respective home. So they all just kind of send each other video, and I mean like my parents have their own group chats of each family and stuff like that, so there's that. But so I think that's just probably the difference right now. But they probably, for us, it's probably like, oh, you guys are celebrating it the way we celebrate it, like it's not too much of a difference on our side. But
yeah, no, I think that's still good that you guys are still keeping that family connection very much alive through technology. I mean, obviously for me, while WhatsApp family group chats and message chains can get a little bit annoying, especially if you're like in a family, like in an Asian family, and I guess hopefully some of our listeners can relate when I say WhatsApp chain messages. I think ultimately it's still nice to sort of have that connection going, I guess, especially during these times when we have to be physically apart. So that's pretty much sort of like what I just wanted to talk about. I mean, there was no, obviously ultimate expectation or end goal with this discussion. I was just genuinely curious as to how my good friend A here would celebrate Chinese New Year di sini daripada di Indo, karena gue juga udah jarang ya rayain Imlek, jadi juga nggak terlalu inget gimana kita rayainnya. And also most of my experiences have been, I guess, one-sided because all of it was experienced when I was very little in Indo. To all our listeners who obviously celebrate today, wishing you all a very happy and festive Lunar New Year, wishing you and your family the very best of health, luck and prosperity, especially to all my fellow people who are born in the year of the ox as well. So that's probably, I don't know, well, according to A, it might not be a lucky year for us. So
yeah, but if you don't believe it, don't worry about it.
Who knows, right? I mean, look, just spread good vibes all around. Don't think too much into it. I think just be a good person and treat others with kindness as well. And I'm sure, the good vibes will come back to you. So yeah, wishing you guys all the best. Stay safe while we're apart, and see you for our next chat.
Bye.
Thank you for listening.
Jangan lupa like, comment, and subscribe, and share it with your friends.
I'd love to hear from you. Please reach out with your comments, stories, and even questions on what we should talk about. See you in the next episode.
Bye. Dah.